Hey beautiful souls, Hannah here from Reality Awareness. Of course, I feel like I haven't gone live for forever publicly. Oh, that's right, since my last ranting and raving that I was really angry and had been suppressing my voice for quite some time, and I'm not doing that anymore. So I've come on to share a little bit about this world. There's a bit of world stuff that I want to talk about. I was speaking about it with a client just yesterday or the day before, and I feel like I really need to speak to people about this. I feel like this needs to be shared publicly about what I was sharing with her, because I feel like it's really relevant for everybody with cat hair as I speak, of course. What else would it be? All right, so let me share this with you guys. And if you've got any questions about the world stuff, please pop it in the comments and I will do my best to support you guys on it, because there's things that are really obviously amping up and people getting quite scared, which is like to be expected. There's some big changes going on in the world, right? So let me just be present and share this, and then I shall got some things to share about it. Well, I do and I don't. I was like, oh, do I really need to go live? Well, it was like, what am I going to talk about? I think just because I haven't gone live for a long time, I'm a bit nervous. Well, publicly, I've been very busy in my other groups, of course, with Unhook Me. It's been like a massive thing. Oh my God, it's so massive. Okay. There we go, it has been shared. So now I'm just gonna bring up this live stream so I can see the comments properly here. Okay, awesome. Hi again, Joy. Hi, Christina. Joy says so massive. Yeah, it's been massive, right? It's so massive. Oh, so big. So big. Okay. Okay, why is that coming up there? Oh, it's like notifying me that I'm live. Right. Yes. Of course. All right, awesome. Okay, so as I shared, if you've got any questions about any of the world stuff that you want sort of insight on, or you're like, what's happening with this, like perspective, or just anything at all, just obviously type in the comments. So the main thing that I really wanted to share is, I guess, a little bit about my personal journey with it, because I know I've been pretty quiet about it, to be honest, because I've been nervous to say stuff online, and I think that's part of this fear about everything else that I was suppressing a while ago, and it was all kind of like piling up, and it was like, well, there was so much to that. So there's a page that I've created on my website called What on Earth is Going On, and that's where I've collated all the world stuff that I've been talking about, the world predictions that I've put on there, that I've done over time. I've just put it all in one spot, so if you ever need to have a look at that, obviously that you can find that there. So the biggest thing, that it was interesting that I was talking about this with my client on Saturday, and the interesting part to me is that I was really, I guess, reminding myself, when I was sharing all this stuff with her, I was like, oh yeah, like that, the being that came through it was June that I did the last world energy, world prediction update in video format. And, he'd said at that time in February, get ready. And February is now, yeah? Now, if we look at what's going on the globe, things are really starting to amp up. So especially here in Australia, I know a lot of countries have been in lockdown for quite some time and come in and out very rapidly. Australia is just starting to hit and follow suit. Now, this sort of comes as no surprise to me, and when I got the message around, February, like get ready, and that's when I saw the abandoned supermarket trolleys in the shopping center, right? It was like an abandoned sort of place, and that was the vision. And I was just sharing in Unhook Me just this morning, like people have visions, and if they're not carefully interpreted, they can be misinterpreted. And then fear can spread like wildfire, or so many different things, right? So when we look at, you know, like that vision that I was given, it's like, well, what does that really mean? You know, it's like, get ready, like the abandoned supermarkets, you know, now with what is kind of going on in Australia. So tell me if you guys are in another country and other things are going on, if you know, would like to share or what have you. But because I know every country is kind of different at different stages, but I also know we're all coming to a point of like, it's all happening at the same time, right? So the abandoned supermarket trolleys, you know, that I saw in the vision, you know, to me, get ready, you know, in Australia here, like I said, apparently in a few weeks, you know, like the vaccine's coming in. I mean, like everybody's knowing that at some point that's going to come in. Now, the other thing that's being, you know, sort of spoken about here in Australia is that the I don't know, what do they call it? I don't know if they call it a medical passport or something, right? But basically you'll be showing, you know, it's like it's an ID thing, and you know, those sort of videos or those movies of the future where we're all microchipped just like an animal, and scanned, and all your data is traced and everything like that. Then, you know, is that coming to pass? Well, only if we choose it to be. There's still some things that I see going around, and like people are like, see, they're tracking you, and I'm like, man, you were signed up on their email list. Like, of course you're going to get sent an email about their updates of their store. Like, that's how a company works. Like, I don't know, there's just some things that again are being like interpreted and then like blown out of proportion, and it's like, guys, like you kind of got to be really mindful about what you say in that regard, because you're going to send people into a spiral. Like the abandoned supermarket trolley vision, like I could be like shouting to the world that like, oh my God, like we're going to go into a food shortage because I saw a vision of like the supermarket trolley and it's abandoned. Like, no, I actually don't think that that's what's going to happen, you know? Like, to me, that vision is like, what's coming through is like the start of the Armageddon, like the start of the thing, right? And it's like, I know I'm joking around with it, but you know, at the same time, it's like that could literally be a thing. Like someone could have a vision like that and then like spread all this stuff. And now people who are scrolling Facebook and just, you know, randomly doing things, multitasking or whatever, like they're going to see that and go, oh, and their whole world and their whole day is just going to be like shaken up. And, you know, like you just got to be fully like aware of what, you know, like especially when we get intuitive messages, like how we're interpreting them. It's so important, right? So Tina says, I feel like the dark energies are different now and having a hard time articulating how. Yeah, it's shifted. It's definitely shifted, right? And this is where, you know, it's really coming into, you know, like looking at all the details. And this is whenever someone sends me something or something comes up, I'm like, okay, so this person, and I'm like Googling it, and I'm like looking on the government websites, and I'm like, okay, who said that? And, you know, like that example of like, you know, oh, like, you know, then I got sent this email talking about that I have to wear a mask in their store. And I'm like, man, you're on their email list. Like, what did you expect? Like to me, that, like, do you know what I mean? It's like, guys, like, again, yeah, as you said, Julie, it's like common sense. Like, question everything, like, ask more questions, like, you know, do your research, like, find out about things, you know? So the thing I want to speak to you about around, you know, what I was specifically sharing with my client on Saturday. So Christina says, I feel the pressure on taking the vaccine and worried about the side effects. So I guess I would question, like, why? Like, where's that pressure coming from that you need to get the vaccine? Like, what, because you won't be able to go to the shops and buy food? What, because you won't be able to have freedom of movement and go on a plane without a vaccine? Like, where's that pressure coming from? Like, that's, I guess, where I would be asking, like, because pressure is an outside source, like, pushing on you. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, like, for me, there's just, it's not freaking happening. No way, right? You will kill me before that happens, yeah? From the doctors. Well, you know, do we always listen to doctors? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe some people do. Maybe you need to, right? Like, that's not really for me to say here or there. Like, you need to listen to your intuition and what's right for you. But if it's coming from pressure, it means that something is, like, pushing on you. That's not really your truth, is it? I don't know. that's what I would be questioning. If it was like, yeah, it feels really right for me to get it, well, I'd be like, trust your intuition. But if you're like, oh, I feel this pressure, I'm like, man, like you'd want to question that, right? All right, so Josephine says the abandoned trolleys could mean more people choose to grow their organic food, more smart shopping awareness, going directly to farm grocers. Yeah, definitely, exactly. See, there's so much more, you know, like there's so much different ways we can interpret something, okay? And that's the same with anything that anyone shares. So even this information coming out about, you know, like, you know, the vaccines are coming in Australia and stuff, like, okay. So I'm going to share about what's in, you know, what I was sharing, because there's a lot of fear around like, there's all this stuff and like, I'm not prepared. And, you know, a big part of me wanting to share this with you guys is like, yeah, I have been saying, get prepared, be prepared. And if you read my world prediction update that I released at the start of January, so, you know, like I share in there that, this is going to go on for 4 to 5 years, like 2025, 2027, that's when it's going to shift. And this is the piece that I was sharing with my client, because, you know, she was saying all these things and I was like, well, this is going to go on for 5 years. Like, you know, and she was finding that really difficult. And when, you know, we spoke, and it was like, I realized that this is probably a reality for a lot of people, you know, like people are getting angry and like shouting about the masks and all sorts of things. And like, I'm all for speaking your truth and like, you know, trying to educate people. But at the end of the day, this is literally going to drag on for 5 to 7 years. Like, are you really going to run the streets telling people about wearing a mask and not wearing a mask for the next 5 to 7 years? Now, I'm not saying don't speak your truth, but I'm saying don't exhaust yourself in the process. Like, this isn't going to shift overnight. Now, it's interesting because my client also said to me, is it Pam Gregory or Pam Leo? I always get them mixed up. The astrologer on YouTube, my client had said that she had said that something about planetary lineups until 2024. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense, because that's the time frame that I was intuitively getting, that this kind of like, you know, fight and all the stuff going on in the world is going to drag out until like 5 to 7 years. Like, that's what I got. And the reality is that we're in a war, right? We're in a World War III, and they don't need to bomb different countries, because the bomb is the one in our hand, right? It's not a physical bomb this time that needs to drive the fear, because they do that so well with all of, you know, all the technology these days. Now, the other piece about this is that, you know, a lot of people have been worried that platforms are going to get shut down, and Facebook and Google, and they're all going to get shut down, and we're going to lose everything, we're going to lose our business. And, you know, the reality is that, you know, and so number one, I need to share with you guys that I grieved about this in August last year. It was August mainly last year. And I grieved hard, like all the reality of this world stuff going on. Now, if you are still in a lot of fear or anxiety, or you don't know what to do, or you're not sleeping, or is really on your mind, you really need to cry about the reality that we're facing, number one. Because if you don't, you're going to stay in that state, right? And this is where I'm always passionate about making sure you release those tears, cry, grieve, because it holds a level of stress in your body, because the stress hormone cortisol is actually released through your tears, right? So number one, I have grieved a lot, because I've been really scared too, to be honest. Like, you know, back in February last year, when I had the vision of men in big white puffy suits coming around and force vaccinating us, like, that is the reason, that is what drove me to get in my car, to pack up everything in my car and get on the road. There was no way I was staying in lockdown for that. Now, people have turned around and said to me, oh, well, that didn't happen, Hannah. And in myself, I'm like, it hasn't happened yet. Now, you know how I always, like, that time last year, so March, April, May last year, everyone's like, oh, in lockdown or whatever. I was like, the worst hasn't happened yet. I kept saying it. And do you know what? I'm still saying it. The worst hasn't happened yet. Now that can induce a lot of fear in people, okay? But what I'm saying this for is because there's still time to prepare. Now, what do I mean when I say prepare? There's so many different avenues here, okay? Number one, on my, what on earth is going on page, there's a lot of information on there. Please make sure you go through that if you haven't gone on that before. Number two is don't panic. If you're panicking, you need to cry. You need to cry, okay? The reality is that they're not going to shut down big companies that are controlling the world. People are like, Facebook's going to disappear and they're going to close this and they're going to shut this. It's like, no, they're not. They might change the owner or the CEO or the management, but they're not going to change. The reality is they're not going to change the thing that's controlling the world right now. Like, that's the reality of it. When you really think about it, they're not going to take away the platforms that are controlling the world. Like, that would just be insanity, because that's what they're trying to do, right? So when you really drop into the reality of it, we can let that fear go. Now, the whole money system and the money changeover, it's been talked about for years, yeah? Now, the reality is, it seems like it's actually pretty close to a reality of that happening. How fast is that going to happen? People are like, oh, it's going to happen. Like, I think people just talk about it. It's like, it's going to happen overnight. When we really think about the reality of changing the world over to, say, like a, what do they call it? A digital, currency and a digital reality, like, that's going to take some time. It's a bit like they want to, like, have everyone vaccinated. That's going to take some time, like, yeah, they're saying they're going to, bring out all these vaccines and stuff. And the first thing that I always do is whenever I hear that or I see an article and I'm like, okay, how many vaccines are coming into Australia? And the first thing, it's like 2 million or something. And I'm like, Googling, I'm like, how many people in Australia? It's like 10 million. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So immediately let's go with the fear. It's like, and this is where I say it's going to go on for like 4 to 5 years. Now, I've said for a long time in my predictions that when I look into the future like that, I see 2024 as a black line, like it's blank. Like if we have a timeline of each year or whatever, I see it as light or whatever you want to see it as, 2024 is black. It's like a black hole. It's like a black line, right? Now, what does that mean? I don't know. It's a bit like interpreting the abandoned supermarket trolley thing, right? It's the same sort of thing. When I feel into what that is, the 2024, that's going to be the worst year. So when I say be prepared, get ready, I feel like 2024 will be the crux of it. That will be the hardest. That might be the time when they are coming around in white puffy suits trying to force vaccinate us. Maybe. I don't know. In my sense, it's like, I feel personally there will be a point in time globally, I feel this is what the 2024 is, that perhaps we won't be able to go to the shops, for example, without having the vaccination. Like, maybe that's, it's like people are like, oh, that's obvious, Hannah, right? But what I'm saying is there's always a way. There's always a way to say no. There's always a way to get food. Now, there's always a way for everything. You have to always remember that. And if you're panicking and you can't get out of that state, you need to cry. And that might come in waves of the crying. And this is what I was sharing with my client. Is like, well, I've been scared. Like, I'm a single mom. I'm, raising her on my own. I don't have family around. We've got all our animals. Like, I'm like, yeah, what happens in that sort of a situation, like, what if the world goes Armageddon style? I'm kind of left here protecting my daughter to myself. Like, there's a reason that it's been tapping me on my shoulder to get my gun license before, like they say that you can't do that in Queensland anymore. You know what I mean? But is that going to happen overnight? Like, is for example, because I have a feeling in some states in Australia, they've already taken that away. So in Australia, you need a license for that stuff. A license, and there's so much to it. Anyway, I've already looked into it. And it's like, well, is the world going to come to that? Is that what it, the answer is, I don't know. The answer is that my intuition's guiding me to do these sorts of things, and maybe it's out of fear, and maybe like you're in fear, Hannah, and I'm like, I don't know, I just call it getting prepared. I live out on a property. I have a definite reason to have a rifle and have access to it if I need to. Like, And it's not like out of fear. It's like, if my intuition is tapping me on the shoulder to do certain things, well, I'm going to do certain things, right? And it's a bit like the food and buying stuff, you know, where you say, if there was a year that you couldn't go to the shops, would you be able to survive? For a lot of people, they say no, and then they go into panic. And I'm like, this is not about being panicky. This is the fact that if that's what 2024 is, that's the amount of time it takes for it really to be strictly implemented. Are you prepared? Like, it's only 2021. Like, you've got time. Yeah? Now, the other part to this is, why is it going to take that long? Who knows, right? But at the same time, I do know. And this is what the part that I was sharing with my client. Now, I know narcissistic relationships inside out like the back of my hand. I've been the narcissist. I've been in the relationship with narcissists. I know them like the back of my hand. Inside out, all day long, right? You could say I'm the queen of it. I can smell it a mile off. I've been that person, so I know it, right? When you've been that person and you've done the work to shift, you know it. The reality is that right now, humanity and the earth is in a narcissistic relationship with the leaders of the world. With our earth and humanity is in a narcissistic relationship with the governments, with the leaders, with everybody who is controlling the world, who is the leaders of the world. Like, that is the reality, that humanity is in a narcissistic relationship with the leaders. That's literally how you could describe it. Now, when you pull it back to the one-on-one person, when somebody's in an intimate relationship or any relationship with a narcissist, right? Now, you guys know I don't like using labels, but we're just going to use that label for ease of understanding right now. When a person is in an intimate relationship with a narcissist, an abuser, whatever you want to call it, when that person first wakes up to the fact that they're in that situation, they don't just quick leave. They're out and I'm healthy and I'm healed. Like, that doesn't happen. The reality is that they could have that awareness for 18 months, 2 years, and then they start to take action. They're like, well, actually they're aware of it, but they don't do anything about it. And then maybe the next 18 months to 2 years, they're like, this is not okay. And they might start voicing their truth, or they might start getting support and help about it. And they might start getting stronger and starting to step up and like going, no, this is not, no. And then after 4 to 5 years, they will actually leave that relationship, or they will just stay in any one of those stages. The reality is that Earth and humanity is in relationship with a narcissistic leadership system on the planet right now. And it was, like I said, it was interesting that my client had said that Pam Gregory, or Pam Leo, I think it's Pam Gregory, the astrologer on YouTube, that she said for 2024, it's like whatever planetary stuff was going on until then. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. So whatever it is, right? At the same time, on an energetic level, people are the people that call the other people sheep, right? And I even hate that. It's like, guys, like, come on, you know, like when you can understand that people are in a narcissistic relationship, you can kind of see that the sheep, and I don't like even calling them that because they're just asleep. They're not conscious of what's going on yet. Calling them sheep isn't really helpful. They're just unconscious to the fact that they're in an abusive relationship. They're in a narcissistic relationship. And soon, right, there's only so much that a person can take of unconscious. All right, it just froze, so I'm moving outside. So it froze. Frozen on such depth. I know, right? Okay, I'm gonna stand out here. Hopefully it's not too windy because there's reception outside. Okay. So when we can view these sheep, if you may, these unconscious people as simply unconscious people, that they're in a narcissistic relationship and they're not aware of that yet, everything can start to shift. And yeah, I know you're using the label of the devil energy. I don't even like using, you know, it's like we could say, oh, it's the devil. It's like, it's unconsciousness, you know, and unconsciousness is still a label, but at the same time, when we like, devil has a bad connotation to it, so does narcissistic, so do, you know, is all that stuff. But when we can look at it as unconsciousness and consciousness, it really takes the kind of like sting out of it, the judgment that keeps us all stuck, you know, like that's the thing about it. So yeah. So, okay. So I just got a little bit lost where I was talking in the deepness when it froze. It's so interesting. So Joy says, I'm refusing to vaccine. I'm a nurse, but I don't know what's in it. And Joy says, my company isn't mandating it here in the US at this time. And this is the thing, guys, like we have to keep remembering that everything and all these pieces, they're all different companies with all different regulations. And, you know, and the other thing I saw earlier today was, oh yeah, I was sharing that already. So I've already said that. All right. So is there anything else that I need to share about this? So yeah, the narcissistic relationship, that's why it's taking time for people, the sheep, to wake up, you know, and like my heart goes out to them. And at the same time, it's just like any other, you know, it's just like sending your kids to school. Not that there's anything against that, but you know, it's the same sort of thing going on. I don't know if that's too windy. All right. So does anyone have any questions about any of that I just shared? And I'm just tuning in if there is anything. I felt like there was something else I needed to share about that. Grieving this stuff is like probably the biggest piece about it. Yeah. So Rita says, what do you see happening when people wake up? Oh, the $1 million question. Nice one. You know, and this is, I guess, when I say to people as well, I'm like, get ready, be prepared, you know, and what I say about that is, again, it's not out of fear. It's just like, we've still got time, even though people are like, no, we don't, it's coming in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, well, until it actually happens, it hasn't yet, you know, and until then, if you're freaking out about the next few weeks, well, are you in fear about that, or are you actually using that time wisely? So then you're not going to be freaking out. And this is the thing, right? So the other piece that I just want to share, oh yeah, so when you say, what do I see happening when people wake up, is like, when I say get ready, I'm like, guys, if you're feeling called to, you know, organize your healing business, get yourself sorted, like, if we really think about what happens when people come out of a narcissistic relationship or an abusive relationship, like, they're traumatized. At the end of the day, they are traumatized. That's the reality of it. And then there's also like a whole piece around coming into, I want to say de-traumatization. It is, right? It's healing from the trauma. It's healing from, like, if you really view it as somebody coming out of an abusive, traumatic experience from a narcissistic relationship, they'll be ready for healing. And so that 2024, like I said, is that black line that I see. So what I see about that is that, like, that's when it'll be at its worst. So for me, for example, like, you know, I'm technically preparing that if I can't go to the shop for a year, can I survive with my daughter and all my animals? Like, in myself, for me, that's around the 2024 mark. That's, you know, that's what I'm preparing for. So, and if that vision of like men in white, big white puffy suits coming around and force vaccinating us, like, there'll be a shoot off before any of that happens. No, I don't know. No, I'm serious though. Like, you would have to kill me before that happens. You know, and at the end of the day, is that really going to happen? I don't know, but I'm going to do everything in my power to, you know, so that I die with no regrets. Like, you know, again, I'm not saying this to, you know, put fear. I'm just like, I'm not in fear about it. I'm like, you know, but I'm doing, if I get a nudge to do something or whatever, then I'm going to do it so that I'm not in fear or like, oh, I'm not prepared. Like, no, get prepared. There's time, right? So Demi says, yes, this year, huge for starting my business. I have had soul retrieval magic is coming through. Yes, awesome. And this is what I'm talking about, you know, like I said, the world's still asleep, you know, not everybody, as you know, But the sheep, as people were judging them and calling them, they're just in a narcissistic relationship. And, you know, those people that are even calling the people the sheep are also, you know, I guess continuing that perpetual cycle of abuse by friggin' doing this rather than friggin' supporting them in ways. You know what I mean? Anyway, don't get me started on that bit. So that 2024 black line, okay, so when you say, what do I see when people are going to wake up, they're going to be traumatized. So 2024 is like the crux of it. So you know how in 2020 the world kind of went, like, because like everything just stopped and everyone's like, what is happening? Like, that I feel like will be tenfold downwards or something. Like, that's the kind of feel of it. Like, why is it a black line? I don't know. Like, this is just my intuition on it, right? And so when people start to wake up from that, it's kind of like, you know, back in April last year when I went on those road trips, and I want to speak to that about in a minute as well, because that's important to all of this. When I went on the road trips in April, I ran my course, Reconfiguring Energetic Codes. I was scared because I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the world. So I'm not ready. I'm not sorted yet, like, to help humanity, because I know when they wake up out of this, they're going to be traumatized as anything. Like, it's a thing, right? And so, you know, when I was freaking out, and then in the Reconfiguring Energetic Codes, that same being came through again, and he said, like, no, the world's not ready for your consciousness, not until 2027. And I was like, oh, that makes complete sense, you know, like, because at the end of the day, they're not, right? But when people come out of an abusive relationship, they're going to be ready then, you know, like, that's the reality of that, you know, like. And so that 2024 is where I feel would be the crux, where people are like, fuck this bullshit, I'm not doing this. I feel like that's when people will really start to go, like, you know, it's 4 years of it, 5 years of it, actually, that's 5 years of it at that point in time. So when we can really look at that, and then it's like 2025, I feel like that's when people are really just going to be like, nah, this is not okay. Like, there'll be some massive big changes. 2025, 2027 is when people will really start to go, what's the alternative? Because this is effed up. You know what I mean? So yeah, I hope it doesn't take that long either. And maybe I'm incorrect. But at the end of the day, it takes time, you know, and maybe people are like, you know, they're like, oh, it's, you know, fine. And what was I watching the other day? Oh my God, I was watching something. I don't know. I was watching something. Because people are like, yeah, it's normalizing. It's people are coming in, oh, it's normalizing, and oh, we're going to get the vaccine and it's all normal now. Like, it's cool. We can go back to normal. Like, you know, of course, there's nothing normal about it, as I know you guys know. But for those sorts of people, right, it will be for some time, you know, again. And this is the narcissistic relationship. It's like, give a little. Here, see, it's all normal. See, no, there's nothing. No, what happens in that abuse cycle? Like, this is a prime, like, worldwide freaking, you know, narcissistic abusive cycle going on here. You know, it's like the bang, and then it's like, see, no, everything's okay. You know, like, here's the vaccine. Here, you can travel. If you got the vaccine, you can do all this stuff. Like, you know, and at the end of the day, and then people will be normalized to that, and then something else will happen, and then they'll freak out, and then they'll normalize that, and, you know, and there's only so much of that before people are like, this is not okay. Yeah. So I hope it doesn't take that long as well. And at the end of the day, and this is why you know, I said at the start of the live stream, I was like, you know, if you're upset or panicky or in fear or yelling at the sheeples, right? It's just unconscious people who have no idea what's going on. Like, that's not really going to help anyone, and you're going to exhaust yourself, because this is going to go on for a long while. Now, again, I'm not saying don't stand up for your rights. I'm not saying, you know, if you're feeling called to be an activist in that sort of industry, like, go for it. Like, you know, trust your intuition, as I always say. But at the end of the day, be prepared for the long haul. Like, you know, any other world war that we've been in has gone for, what, 4 to 5 years, and then the aftermath of that is how many years? So this is what's going on, right? No, Rita, I know you joined a little bit through this video, so you might want to rewatch a bit, because I shared, yeah, my stance on that as well. I don't know if you can hear the cows in the background. They're all there because the farmer's up here. Okay, so is there any other questions, or I'm just checking if there's anything else I need to say about this as well. So interesting that internet dropped when it did. Wonder if this video will stay up. I kind of don't care anymore. So, yeah. All right. I don't know. I don't think there's anything else I want to say. Oh, yeah, there is. Yeah. Thank you. So, the other piece to this is that when so last year, like I said, the reason that I got in the car and, you know, drove was because I was having the vision of men in white puffy suits coming around to our houses and force vaccinating us. And then lockdown happened, right? And I didn't tell anyone because I thought they would think I was crazy. I think I told like one person or two people or something, right? That's the reason why I got in the car and left. Like, there was so many reasons, but that was the reason. And, you know, like I said earlier, like someone had said to me like, oh, well, that didn't happen. And I'm like, I didn't say it to them, but I was like, it didn't happen yet. It hasn't happened yet. You know, and I'm like, the worst still hasn't happened. You know, I feel like the worst will happen in 2024. That's my feeling on it. You know, I'm just like, that's why everyone's exhausting their energy on stuff. And I'm like, guys, like, honestly, it's not the worst of it yet. And I'm like, just cry. Every time you feel exhausted or panicked or in fear, the best thing you can do is cry. Yeah, it really is, because it's going to help release this level of stress, and you're going to come back with a clear head to be able to keep going. So when I got in the car and drove, you know, like the biggest piece about this, right, is that, so I shared that before as well, Joy, about what will happen in 2024 is the fact that, you know, that might be the time when we really can't get food or anything like that at, you know, from shops without a vaccine or whatever. So when I got in the car and drove last year, like there were so many like reasons for that. But, you know, I went to a place and the universe took me there because I was not blind, not unconscious, but not in reality about the reality of like, okay, I want to say like chemtrails, you know, all that sort of stuff. Like I was aware of what's going on. I wasn't really buying into the fear of it. I think that's the biggest part, right? And I wasn't really taking it seriously. I wasn't. There were so many reasons why the universe took me to Victoria on that road trip and took me to where I was, okay? That woke me up to so many things. Now, a big piece of the part of it I want to share on the, you know, on this live stream in relevance to this now is that it took me there to show me how to set up, basically, right? Now, am I in fear about it? No. But am I preparing? Well, yeah, there's a reason the universe took me there. So it was in my face around how to, you know, be in survival mode basically and live off the land. Like it taught me so much. Like, yeah, I had an idea about it, but I had a first-hand experience about it of actually like what to do with it, yeah, and how to do it and all those sorts of things. So what's interesting about that is now that it's kind of given me those skills, if you may. I was pretty good at, you know, doing everything and living off the land and all that sort of thing, but now I've got like first-hand experience of how and what to do, etc. It's like now implementing that. But when I got here to this house, that's when like all the human trafficking and all that sort of stuff really came into my awareness. And I grieved probably the whole month of August last year. I'm a single mom. I've got my daughter and my animals to care for. I don't have any family around. Like we're pretty much on our own. It was just like, man, like this is kind of like, you know, this is big about doing this, you know, and like there's been so like many times that I have been scared. I'm like, man, you know, like there's other people who've got someone else to help them set up for survival or whatever you want to call it. Like, you know, if it came to that, do I think it's going to come to that? Who knows, right? But that 2024, it keeps in my head, right? It's like there's a reason for that. So at the end of the day, I guess the reason that I'm sharing this and the reason that I was guided to share this today is that the biggest thing you have to remember is even though everyone's like, it's happening tomorrow and it's happening there and there, if it does happen tomorrow that we can't go to the shops without a vaccine and you're not prepared, you have to remember that for a while, there will still be people who will be able to go to the shop for you. There will still be a way to order online. There will still be a way to grow your own food for a while. There will still be a way to have somebody to be able to support you and help you when and where you need it, right? You have to remember that you've always been looked after and you always will be. And there isn't anyone who won't like help you, right? That there's always somebody. And if the first person says no, you keep going until there is somebody that will help you, okay? So really, really important to, again, not be like in fear. But when you are, it's important to acknowledge that and to cry, because, you know, as Blossom says here, like, I had similar vision about then, so much military also, it's insane, but I feel like that timeline may have already collapsed. Yeah, and that's the thing, like, we're literally creating our reality right now, for sure. And for me personally, I feel like a lot of their plans, like I saw something, I don't know, the other day or whatever, and they're like, you know, they're upset that their timeline isn't going fast enough or something, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, so this is the thing. Well, I keep getting the intuitive message, don't freak out, you've still got time, Hannah. Like, you know what I mean? And that's why I've just been doing what I do, doing what I can each day, and still being prepared at the same time, right? It takes time to collapse an entire world structure and set up a new one, right? Now, is that new one really going to come online? Who really knows? Let's like pray not, but at the end of the day, there's still time to prepare for choosing something else for sure, right? Okay, so Joy says, you think I'm us as well. I'm not sure what you mean. Oh, you think I'm in US as well? I'm not sure what you mean there. Is there golden light at the end? And this is the thing, guys, you know, like, the reality is, I don't know, and the reality is I don't know, right? I don't want to be doom and gloom, but we also need to be in reality here, and this is where you say, Blossom, as well, do you think we can collapse the worst timelines? And I'm like, well, yeah, anything is possible, but personally, I also believe we kind of need to be prepared for the worst. Like I keep saying, like, I don't keep getting that message for no reason. Like, if I had to not go to the shops for a year, could I survive? Like, it's a thing, right? Like, when you look at, you know, when I saw photos of down in Victoria again and everybody's masked up and stuff, and I'm like, man, I'm pretty out of it and lucky to be out of it here. I'm not in a city, I'm out in the country, and they're, you know, I'm pretty away from it in a way. It's like, you know, I know that would be confronting for me. It's confronting when I see those images, right? And the thing is if I was in that environment, I would be crying as much as I need to, because I know that those tears release the stress. Because at the end of the day, that shit's scary, man. Like, it is. Like, tell me someone who's not scared of that stuff. Like, come on. Like, yeah, we can definitely stand up and speak our truth and still be scared by speaking our truth, in standing up and speaking our truth 100%, because we need that and we have to do that. But at the same time, like, it's confronting. It's not the world that we were in freaking not even 18 months ago, you know? Like, it's a change. And what I always say about change, we have to grieve it. Yeah, we have to grieve it. So, and the whole thing, like collapsing timelines and that sort of thing, like, yeah, I do believe that we can do that stuff, but at the same time, we really need to be in reality about reality. And if we're gonna, I don't think you're saying this, that you're doing this, Blossom, but you know, if we're really gonna sit there and our way out of this without taking a reality check and actually like putting things into perspective here, this is why I keep getting those timelines around the 4 years. And like I said, even the astrologer had said that 2024, whatever planetary lineup it is going to be, you know, like that's how it's hanging around for. And I was grateful for that confirmation in a way, because I was like, well, that's what my intuition has said from the start. So yeah. It's like, yes, work for the highest vision, hold that highest light, like stand up for what you believe in and speak your truth. And fuck no, like I said, like I'll be like, you know, I'm applying for my gun license and all sorts of things. Like I need it to shoot the hares in the field, right? So, you know, it's like at that point in time, like get prepared, but hold the highest timeline. But you don't want to be left caught, you know, in the rain without the umbrella when you knew that the storm was coming. You know what I mean? So Brittany says, I feel like everyone should live off the land while they have the opportunity before it comes to needing to survive. Exactly, right? And this is why I keep saying, I'm like, guys, like you've still got time. And instead of like ranting and raving about how bad it is or that the sheeples are not waking up, like guys, you just need to freaking get organized for those sheeples when they do wake up, because they're gonna need you. Like that's more important in a way, right? Because they're not, nobody wakes up by you yelling and screaming in their face trying to tell them that. Like they don't. Okay, so I wanted to say something else then too. You should live off the land while they have the opportunity before it comes. Yes. Oh, there was something else I was going to say that I forgot now. You think that will happen in the US, meaning the store thing? I think eventually, I have a feeling like it's already starting to happen. not in a strict way, but I feel like soon it will be a strict way. And is that what the 2024 is? I feel that that's what it is. That's when the world will be ready and prepared for them to build on a world scale. Like, that's my sense. Like, at the moment, it's different country, little bit here and here in each little country, and it's like rolling around. Like, you know, they're doing it, and then soon it'll be like, whoop, all at once. Like, that's my feeling about it. So, yeah. So who knows what will happen, but that's the vibes that I've been getting and tuning into about all of that stuff, yeah? All right, I think that that's all that I wanted to share for now about that. I'm just trying to, there was something else I wanted to say, I thought, but yeah. So, most important points is cry whenever you need to about any of it. Because at the end of the day, don't tell me someone in the world who doesn't have a bit of worry, concern about all the systems collapsing and what are we going to do. Like, yes, there's freaking so many solutions out there, and you should be starting to find them, and you should be sorting them out. You should be seeking them out, You should be seeking them out, right? And then, you know, like, it's really looking at where's the solution to this, double, triple, freaking 10x, triple checking everything. Anything you see on Facebook, anything you see in the news, anything you see anywhere, ask, where did that information come from? Try and find the truth of it on the government website. Ring up the freaking COVID hotlines and ask them. Like, they will tell you the truth, not some freaking rumor that's going around. Well, maybe they won't tell you the truth. I don't know about that. But anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, instead of freaking out by someone's random post that you saw on Facebook, do your research and then freak out if it's the truth, right? But don't freak out until then and then cry about the stress that we're under, because this is why they're doing it, right? So yeah, is this eventually good for the human race? Well, if humanity wakes up from this, it'll be amazing. If not, who knows? And, you know, the reality is that people will be traumatized. People are traumatized when they come out of an abusive relationship. And it's the healers that need to be ready to catch these people when they're ready, because it's going to happen on a global scale. Like, this is the reality of it. Yeah, it really is. There is so much misleading information, and you want to talk about the war, these are the bombs. The misleading information, the propaganda, they're the bombs. They're the bombs. They are. Is there any of it really happening? I don't know. Where did you see it? Did you drive there and see? Can you fly there and see it? Because at the end of the day, the propaganda and the thing that you're holding in your hand, watching this, is the war. It's like the reality of it. If you haven't listened to my What on Earth is Going On audio, it's on my website. I'll pop the link in the comments when I jump off this live stream. And also it's on my website. If you haven't listened to that, please do. It's quite long. I think it was 2.5 hours or something. I don't know. It was an hour and a half. I don't know. It's long. You can multitask listening to it. If you haven't listened to that, lots of information in there as well. So many crows at my house calling out confirmation. Yeah, the death, rebirth, and the crows are the messengers. Crows have been used a long time ago as the messengers, and they hold so much wisdom if we really listen to them. There's been a lot of crows around here the past 2 to 3 weeks. Really, like, the end of a death rebirth cycle is what really happens with the crows. So yeah. All right, guys, if that's all the questions, I'm gonna jump off this live stream, and if you think this can help somebody, please share it with them. Remember, I'm holding the Tuesday Intuitive Healing Tuesdays. Every Tuesday is in my free group doing intuitive healing for those who join the live stream. So send me a message if you're not in the support group on Facebook, or you can find it through the Facebook search bar. You just type in Reality Awareness Support Group and it will come up if you're not already in there. I love you guys heaps. I shall see you soon. Bye.